one time I come here.
Quran 131.
Oh, you could get up.
Whatever side you're on.
So what we saw in the streets of London and the streets of Paris and the streets of New York was adulation, support and celebration for the act of mass murder, rape, indiscriminate against old and young alike in our streets. And Madam, I'll take questions in a second. Do you want to ask a question? Let me finish this point and then I'll take a point. Right. We should all be concerned that in our Western society, a terrorist organisation is able to have more say on what happens in our streets than our own governments. We can't expect those who are bought into Hamas to think any differently, but all of you who are not Muslims, all of you who are not the allies of terrorists, should be alarmed by the fact that terrorists have more control over what is happening in our streets than your own governments. Now, the lady was very patient. She asked very politely. So, Madam, if you'd like to make a point before I continue, what would you like to say?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. You just said something about the Quran and the institutional that basically in the Quran itself that it says that the Christians are actually second-class citizens. That is not true. That's what I wanted to actually kind of like stop you at, and instead it's not a question. It's more of actually an argument that says, please, 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 do read the Quran, and if you're not able to explain it or to actually understand it, we have scholars that actually just really completely dedicated to explaining the Quran and exactly what it means, every expression of it. Because it's hard, it's hard to understand it, even for us actually. Even for us, it's hard to understand just the Quran from its face value, right?
Allow
so
me to
it's
reply,
very
man. I
important.
get your point.
Sure, sorry. I'll just, there was this thing, and the second thing. So this is one thing, and then the second.
Madam, let me reply. I took a point. Let me reply to that point. Ladies and gentlemen, the point is, I am being accused of misrepresenting Islam. If you don't believe me, go and speak to the Coptic Christians of Egypt and ask them what it meant to be trapped like a dhimmi. If you don't believe me, go and speak to the Assyrian Christians from Syria and Iraq and ask them what it meant to be trapped like a dhimmi. If you don't believe me, go and speak to the Sudanese Christians and ask them what it meant to be trapped like a dhimmi. If you don't believe me, go and speak to the Lebanese Christians and ask them what it meant to be trapped like a dhimmi. Don't listen to the apologetical lies of the Muslim. Go and speak to the people who have endured dhimmitude for 1400 years in Armenia, in Turkey, in Greece. Go and speak to the Christians who have suffered what dhimmitude is, not what the apologists try to tell you it is. Madam, before you make another point, let me make
No,
one more
but you
point in
don't
my
give an
talk,
answer. You didn't
and
give an
then you
answer.
can make another point.
You
Okay.
didn't answer
Let
us.
me make another point in my talk, and then I'll take another point. No, madam. Let me make one more point in my talk, and then I'll take another point from you. Let me make one more point in my talk, and then I'll come back to you. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to dialogue with anyone. All I ask is that you be courteous. Let me continue with my talk, making a point, and then I will allow you to come back with whatever point you make. And as you can see, I've just done that, and we will continue in that fashion. But I am here to make a speech, and so I do want to progress in the speech that I'm making. So returning to the talk, the security forces of the West right now have a brilliant opportunity. All of the Islamist dogs in our society are showing their face. All of the jihadi scum in the West are showing the world who they are. Western intelligence services should be taking names, should be tracing phone numbers, should be tracking emails, and should be identifying Islamist sympathizers everywhere in the West. And then our state should deport them all, even if they have to do it one a week for years to come until they are all removed. Those who have voiced support for Hamas in your workplace should be reported to the HR, and every employer that has a sympathizer with Hamas should be removed from their employment. Government contracts should be removed from employers that don't sack. Ladies and gentlemen, those that are sympathetic to the Islamists. Refugee claims should be rejected if the one claiming the refugee status is found to be sympathetic to Islamists. We cannot allow that our country be a home to Islamists who despise our way of life, despise our values, despise the way that we want to live, ladies and gentlemen. And right now, we have the best opportunity to identify who they are and to act against them, because they are telling us who they are right now. Now, except for the heckler, before I move on, would anyone like to make a point or ask a question? He got in there first, sir.
Smelled like Pearl Harbor and the Lusitania. I think they were allowed to happen.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the brother tries to say that the Hamas attacks were allowed to happen. I want to counsel you all. I want to counsel you all to not listen to the lies of the Islamist apologists. It was a false flag attack. It was made up. The Jews killed 1,300 of their own citizens. 9/11 was an inside job. Ladies and gentlemen, if you believe this kind of conspiratorial nonsense, you are a fool. You are an unwise fool. Hamas admits they did the attack. Hamas admits they did the attack. But notice the alt-left and the Islamists are united in blaming the Jews.
Brother, can I ask you a question real quick?
Wait. No, let me make one more point. Right, ladies and gentlemen. Right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not responding to hecklers, Jason. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to point out that we should be concerned that we have imported women like that into our society. She should lose her citizenship and she should be removed. We removed the citizenship of Shamima Begum, who was born in the UK. Why did we do that?
Why?
Because she was a supporter of ISIS. Supporting ISIS and supporting Hamas are the same thing. And people like that should lose their citizenship and they should be sent somewhere else. We don't need the Islamists. The Islamists need us. Ladies and gentlemen, what's your question?
Where is the evidence that I support ISIS?
What's your
I'm
question,
going to get you
sir?
arrested for harassment.
What's your
the
question?
evidence I support ISIS?
I never said you did.
You just said I support
said you support Hamas.
Where's your proof? Where's your proof I support Hamas?
Are you happy with what they
Where's
did?
your evidence I support Hamas? Where's your evidence I support Hamas?
Police are over there.
You're making false claims against Muslims. You are inciting hatred towards me. You are accusing me of supporting terrorism without any evidence. Yes, I do. I condemn what they've done to Israel. Yes, I condemn the communists. No. Why have you accused me of supporting them? I support Palestine.
Who's fighting for Palestine?
The people. The world. The world. Hamas is a separatist. Christians accusing Muslims of supporting terrorism because they support Palestine. That is incitement, that is hate crime. I do not support ISIS, I do not support terrorism. This man has falsely accused me of supporting terrorism because I'm a Muslim. He has told me that I should let the Muslims people that I'm security. If this is not racism, I don't know what is.
Do you know what goyim is? Goyim?
Yeah, it's a racial slur.
What does it mean?
Well, no, actually, I think it's... No, hold on one second. What it means... Brother, what it means phonetically and what it means emotionally, not necessarily the same thing. Would you agree?
So I'll tell you
So
right
it
now.
means nations. It means the non-Israelites.
Okay, fair enough.
The
Non-Jews. Non-Jews.
Yeah, exactly.
Non-Israelite.
One second,
Non-Jews,
sir. Sir, I'm doing a talk, so... I was...
Tell him what it means. Tell him what it means. Can I ask you a question?
I wait patiently.
He listened to me. He listened. He's talking to them.
Let me continue with my talk.
If you chat, we won't hear the conversation. Please.
You're trying to avoid the question.
No. I'm trying to do a speech. And you were patient. And because you were patient and polite, and because you were patient and polite, I gave you a chance. You asked me a very technical question. I've answered the question. Well, you asked me, I said I'd take a question. I took a question. I've given an answer. I'd like to continue with my speech. If you wait patiently, again, I'll come back.
No, I'm going to keep going, but just a quick point on just that.
No, let me continue. Maybe one more point.
Because you answered it. No, but brother, all I'm telling you, bro, is that regarding the Palestine-Israel situation, it's not very simple. It's not something that you could easily just
You weren't here at the
make a
beginning of
comment
my
on.
talk, were you?
What did I miss at the beginning?
Yeah, I'm not going over the speech. I'll have to watch you on Soeakers Corner. My point to you is, I've already admitted that it's complicated, and I'm on no one's side.
Okay, fair enough.
I've condemned Israel for its actions, where it persecutes Christians,
Yeah.
where it oppresses. And if you listen, if I can actually get through my speech, you'll actually hear more of that as I go on. You'll actually hear more of that as I go on.
Regarding the Christians, right? You see, there's Muslims here that are speaking loud. And as you're a Christian, and I'm telling them to let the Christians speak. And you want to know what? You want to know where I get that from? You know where I get that from? I get that literally. I get that literally from the Quran. The Quran says if you see a Muslim, so in Islam, in the Quran, in the Quran, Israel done it. If a Muslim is oppressing a Christian, if a Muslim is oppressing a Christian, you have to stand with the Christian. Real quick. This is why. Let me finish, brother. In Islam, I'm going to continue in Islam. But bro, in Islam it says because the point is, why should not let you guys? I'll happily come back to you. I'll let you make that point. I'll let you make that point. Let me finish. Let me continue. Bro, if you're going to talk about Islam, though, you have to also bring the beautiful. And this is why. No, hold on. I don't. If the Palestinians I
have to do nothing.
If the Palestinians
I have to do nothing. Let's be clear. I have to do nothing.
This place is crazy. It's making you crazy. I'm saying the Palestinians. I'm telling you something.
Brother, I want to continue with my talk.
No.
I'll debate you on this point after the talk. I'll debate you on this point. Right. Yeah. No. Yeah.
That's very dangerous to say to somebody.
I didn't say you support.
You said I support ISIS.
I didn't. Take it to the police. No, I said, let's be clear. No, I'm not going to correct myself. I didn't say anything wrong the first time. I want to be clear because the lady has taken such umbrage. I want to put on record that I accept that not every Muslim supports Islamists and that we should make distinctions between Islamists and Muslims.
And what do you mean about
but I absolutely stand by my statement that every Islamist should be deported. Every Islamist. Every Islamist. So, I'm going to go on. If you want me to engage with you, stop interrupting. If you stop interrupting, I'll come back to you. So, ladies and gentlemen. Brother, if you want, I'll debate you afterwards.
What's the Islamist though?
I'll debate you afterwards. So, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, you should recognize the fact, and the fact that you should recognize is that those who are willing to be apologists for terrorism abroad will be willing to support terrorism in the West. That's what you must recognize. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, we should clamp down on Islamists fully and completely. Now, before I continue, is there anyone who hasn't heckled me like these two for the last 2 minutes that would like to ask a question or make a point?
You have knowledge from God. You should
know. What is an Islamist?
Right. So JC asks the question.
What's the question?
What is an Islamist? An Islamist is one who seeks to impose Sharia law over those that would reject it. That is what an Islamist is. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Hamas is trying to do that. ISIS is trying to do that. Islamic Jihad is trying to do that. Boko Haram is trying to do that. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to recognize something. When the Islamists are finished with the Jews, they are going to come for the Christians. And so, Christians, you must unite, you must train, you must organize, you must mobilize, and you must resist Islamization in all of its forms. Ladies and gentlemen. And I want to say to you who are atheists, you who are agnostics, you who are humanists, you who are Sikhs, you who are Hindus, if they win against the Christians, you will be next. This is not Israel's problem. This is our problem. So, is there anyone who hasn't heckled me through the last point who would like to ask a question or make a point?
You are nutter! You are nutter!
No, on the
You are
topic.
nutter! Israel attacked Israel!
And I'm the nutter.
Israel
When you stop heckling, I'll engage with you.
And I'm the nutter.
So, ladies and gentlemen,
Israel!
I want to say that there are Christians who buy into the ideology of Christian Zionism. Those Christians are in error. Christians must not support Israel because of a faulty political theology known as Zionism. The Bible is clear that the solidarity of Christians is with other Christians only and always. The Bible does not teach us that we are one body with non-believing Jews. It says that we are one body with Christians alone. And notice, ladies and gentlemen, all of the left-wing and Islamist sympathisers who were heckling me suddenly shut up when I started speaking about not supporting the Jews because they're Jewish. They'd have no problem with anyone that is against the Jews. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear. As Christians, our loyalty and strength should be given to supporting the church inside Palestine and inside Israel. We should not fall into the trap of taking the side of Israel or of taking the side of terrorist organizations like Hamas. But we should support the church and the church alone. Is there anyone who hasn't heckled me that would like to ask a question or make a point? When you stop heckling. You did heckle. When you stop heckling, then you can ask a question. Okay, anyone, before I make my final point and then I'm done on this speech.
Israel done attack on Israel.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Israel done attack on Israel.
I want to point out
Israel done
the
attack on
hypocrisy
Israel.
of the left-wing media who have talked about the oppression, ethnic cleansing and apartheid treatment of Israel against Palestine and of the occupation of the Palestine territories. I want to point out to you that the left-wing media lies to you, distorts your knowledge of the world and lives by double standards. Just this month, 120,000 Christians were ethnically cleansed from Azerbaijan. They were driven from their homes in Nagorno-Karabakh, or otherwise known as Artsakh. Ladies and gentlemen, there was no Western outcry. There were no celebrities jumping on Twitter to decry the ethnic cleansing. Man, woman, child, old, young, abled, disabled, civilian and fighter. 120,000 10,000 Christians were driven from their homes, and all of your left-wing media celebrities and commentators had absolutely nothing to say about it. Why? Why? Because they were Christians being ethnically cleansed by Muslims, and it doesn't suit the narrative to talk about it. It doesn't suit the narrative to get you all worked up about it, to stand in solidarity with Armenian Christians about it.
They left Armenia
Northern Cyprus
on their own choice.
is currently occupied by the Turkish state that in the 1970s drove its Christian populations out of Northern Cyprus. Left-wing militants, left-wing speakers, where's all your solidarity for the people of Northern Cyprus? Where are the cries to end the Turkish occupation of Northern Cyprus from the BBC, from The Guardian, from CNN, from the British Parliament, from the Democrats? Why are they not speaking about it? Why? Because it does not serve the narrative to point out to you that in the 1970s Christians drove 10,000 Muslims drove 10,000 Christians from their homes and is still occupying Northern Cyprus today. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, why do you not hear about the bombings and the anti-Christian pogroms? The bombings and the anti-Christian pogroms that happen in Pakistan and Egypt. Churches bombed, Christian communities attacked in anti-Christian riots. They called me a liar. Go and check it for yourself and see who is lying. Ladies and gentlemen, why don't you hear about it?
Why?
Because it doesn't serve the narrative to tell you that Christian minorities are persecuted across the entire Islamic world. Christians, I want to tell you that if the world will not speak up and stand up for your brothers and sisters, then that is exactly what you should do. You should stand up for. You should raise a voice for your persecuted brothers and sisters. Because there is no government backing the church, and so the only one backing the church is the church itself. And that means that our solidarity is with all Christians everywhere, against every opponent. This isn't just solidarity against Islamic persecution, but it's against the Buddhist persecution of Karen Christians in Burma, the communist persecution of Christians in Cuba, Venezuela, China and North Korea. It's against Hindu persecution of Christians in India. Wake up, church! Your denominations mean nothing when our brothers and sisters are dying for the faith.
That's right.
Unite, organise, train, mobilise, resist.
Correcto.
Use the fullness of the law to your advantage.
Any questions?
Any questions? Any questions?
Any questions?
All right.
The Crusades, do you not mind? Do you not mind? Okay. Basically, explain to the audience why the Crusades happened.
What's that question, Bob?
So the question was, ladies and gentlemen, what about the Crusades? So let me address that question directly. So what about the Crusades? They were a response to 7 centuries of Islamic aggression, and there are no more Crusades. But the reality is, churches are being attacked in Pakistan. Churches are being attacked in Egypt. Churches are being attacked in Syria. Churches are being attacked in Iraq. Christians are discriminated against in Malaysia. Christians are discriminated against in Indonesia. Christians are persecuted in Morocco. Now notice how you've all been trained by the left that anyone who raises the injustices that Christians face, the first question you that get asked is, what about the Crusades? Why isn't the first response of the left to go, this is horrendous, this is terrible, of course I will stand with you in helping Christians who are being persecuted? The militant left is motivated by hate of the Christian. Next question.
What was it?
Our islands were raided in former centuries by pirates, Burberry pirates.
Yeah.
This is
And more slaves, more of us were taken than ever black people.
so, ladies and gentlemen, it is a fact that we need to push into the discussion about the slave trade, that the Islamic slave trade is older, more widespread, and as longer lasting than any European slave trade. The European slave trade was a crime, aided and facilitated by Arabized Muslims and by pagan Africans. The Arab Islamic slave trade has continued from the time of Muhammad into the present. You can still buy black slaves in the Islamic world today. So don't bother lecturing me about the European slave trade when in parts of the Islamic world buying and selling slaves is still legal. Wake up, black folk. You've been duped by Dawah-Gandhist lies.
And the Christian
Mary
Bible.
Hart's the garden fair.
And the
Any
Bible.
questions?
And the white Bible. The white Christians. What did they do? The Christian Crusade. How many millions did you kill? How many millions did you kill in the
So,
Crusade?
ladies and
So,
gentlemen,
ladies and gentlemen, let's go.
so, ladies and gentlemen, any questions or points? Not interested in responding to a heckler.
Not a heckler. A heckler. Right, okay. You just
Any
spread hate.
questions or
Spread
points?
hate. Why don't you read about your own...
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, this is an important point. Everything that I have said today has been motivated by my love of justice. There was a crime committed by Israel. There is a danger to my neighbour posed by Islamist communities in the West. Christians are being persecuted. It is my love for these groups, the stranger, Israel, my neighbour, those who live in the West, and my brothers and sisters in the church, that has underpinned my entire argument. Let me be clear. I am not advocating, encouraging, or supporting any act of vigilante justice against any innocent Muslim. However, that being said, that does not mean that we have to be passive, inactive, cowardly, or sit on our hands when Islamists are working amongst us to support the barbarous acts of Hamas in Israel and the persecution of Christians abroad.
Who made Hamas?
Any other questions or points?
Who made Hamas?
I've got a question. Can I clarify what you said?
Wait, bro, what's your
Who
question?
made Hamas?
I'm gonna ask you a question.
No, right, if you're not asking me a question,
I'm going to ask you a question.
then do it now.
My question is based upon the statement.
Wait, ask me your question.
Am I
Let
allowed
him
to
speak. He's
Because
allowed.
here's what will happen.
am I allowed
You'll
to-
say
Don't
something to
worry,
him,
don't worry.
he'll reply
It's all
to
right,
you.
it's okay.
You're going to lose your opportunity. This is your chance. Make a point or you ask a question.
Am I allowed to clarify his statement before I ask the question? That's
No.
what I wanna do.
Why?
Right. Okay, any questions or points,
Why?
ladies and
It's
gentlemen?
a speaker's corner, he can speak to whoever he
He
likes.
can. Go and talk to him then.
Go for it, bro.
I'm taking questions. Go and speak to him, bro.
Ask him.
It's a speaker's corner. Feel free to go talk to him. Any questions or points, ladies and gentlemen?
Why do you fear Islam so much?
Not going to respond to a heckler.
Why
Any other
why do you
questions
fear
or
Islam so- I'm
points?
not heckling. I said, why do you fear
Been
Islam so
shouting
much?
the whole time.
Why do
Any
you fear
questions
Islam
or
so
points? Or am I all
I'm
done?
asking you, why do you fear Islam
Would you
so
like
much?
another chance, sir? Would you like to ask a question or make a point?
Simple question.
Go on.
Did I understand correctly a minute ago that you said that more Europeans were enslaved in the Barbary slave trade?
No, I did not say
than
that.
Africans in the...
So let me address that point directly. I do not agree with the statement that this brother made, that more Europeans have been taken by the Barbary pirates than Europeans took from Africa. I'm not sure that is a factual point. I'm agreeing with you. However, ladies and gentlemen, more slaves of every colour, including black and white, were taken into the Islamic world by the Islamic slave trade than the Europeans took from Africa. And let's remember, nearly every African that was taken from Africa, that slave trade was facilitated by Muslims. So they also bear some responsibility for the European slave trade as well as their own. Any other questions or comments?
Questions. Or forever, hold your peace.
Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Going once? Going twice? Go on. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. At this point, I'm going to take any questions of any kind about the Christian faith. Whether it's about our doctrines, our beliefs, our values, our traditions, our customs, anything you've ever wanted to ask a question, now's your chance. Him first, then you. Go on.
In a nutshell, what are the teachings of Jesus?
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, the teaching of Jesus is this: that the kingdom of God has come and that he is the Messiah that is establishing that kingdom, and he establishes it through his crucifixion and resurrection, and that he founds a community known as the church that is the embodiment of that kingdom in the new covenant. That is the quickest summary that I can give. I'd also encourage you to read Matthew 5, where you can see Christ's ethical and value teaching in the Sermon on the Mount. Then you, bro.
What's your position on Christians in Palestine and how they will be affected by what's happening in relation to Israel?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the brother wasn't here at the beginning of my talk. He didn't hear that I've already addressed this point. So I'm not going to go over everything I said before. I'm just going to quickly summarize it because he's a polite bro and I respond to politeness. I condemn Israel's security footprint upon the Palestinian people when it indiscriminately imposes itself on innocent Palestinian Christians that are not involved in the terrorism of Hamas. I condemn the settler movement for stealing the lands of Palestinians, whether they be Muslim or Christian. However, I recognize that Israel is in an impossible situation because whilst not every Muslim in Gaza supports Hamas, too many do, and it is all but impossible for Israel to distinguish between Hamas and the everyday Palestinian. And so I call upon Israel to be better than Hamas, to do its best not to target civilians, to do its best to allow civilians to get out of the conflict zone, to turn on the water and the electricity, even if the price of that is that Hamas can make missiles, so that Israel can show that it is better than Hamas. Let medicine get through to the hospitals, because as a Christian, I am committed to a just in bellum doctrine, a just conduct in war, embodied by the code of chivalry. However, I agree that Israel has to respond to the atrocities of Hamas. Any other questions?
Where is the book of the wars of the Lord?
Sorry?
Numbers chapter 21 verse 14, only Bible verse. Do you not mind pulling it out and seeing?
Right, let's have a look.
Just one, no more after that.
I'll tell you what, bro, you get it out and I'll take you as the next question and then we'll talk about it. You get it out from your Bible.
I have the Bible.
While he's looking up his Bible verse, I'll take his question as soon as he's ready. Any other questions or points while he gets out the verse he wants me to look at? Go on.
How will people say?
Sorry?
How will people say?
So the question is, ladies and gentlemen, how were people, as a Christian, how do I believe that people were saved before Jesus? As a Christian, I believe that the Spirit and the soul of the Lord descended to Hades, where the souls of those who had died before Jesus were kept, and Christ preached the same gospel to the souls in Hades that He had preached to the Israelites and that the church has preached today. All those who were saved by Jesus through Jesus' work on the cross. And any efficacious act, any effective act, like temple sacrifices or the giving of alms, were only worthy and credited to those souls before Jesus, because God knew who of those souls would accept Jesus in Hades, and thus any keeping of the law or of good works were credited to them on account of their acceptance of Jesus in Hades, like my own good works are accounted to me now that I have accepted Jesus. And those that did not accept Jesus in Hades, or do not accept Jesus now, all of their good works are like filthy rags before a holy God. Have you found your verse?
I found it, okay. Numbers chapter 21:14.
Numbers chapter 21:14 states, "Wherefore it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord." The brother's quoting a Bible verse and he's asking me where that book is. Scholars have different understandings of this passage. Some scholars believe that these are references to passages of the Old Testament that were known as the books of the wars of the Lord, the wars of Israel. Because, as Christians still do today, we name passages of our scripture, like we call Philippians chapter 2 the Carmen Christi, or 1 John 5:7 the Comma Johannan, or the story about the adulterous woman, the adultere pericope. It's a normal practice of all religions to name parts of their text by names. Chapter and verses were only a recent invention. At the time that the books of the Old Testament was written, there were no chapters and verses. So parts of the Psalms were called the Psalms of Ascent as you went upon pilgrimage to Jerusalem. So one scholarly opinion is the books of the law are talking about the chapters of the war found in the historical books of Israel. Other opinions are that they're referring to books that were known at the time that have been lost to history. Any other questions? So the question is, do you recognize that Israel is an occupying state of the Palestinian territories and that it refuses to withdraw from them? Yes. However, ladies and gentlemen, Israel has a right to exist. And the only way that the Palestinians can have an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to have a state of their own is if they give up on this misguided belief in jihad, because the only way to win their struggle against Israel is through mass, non-violent resistance. And if Israel is the aggressor, then they need to demonstrate that they are the better person. But whilst ever the struggle of the Palestinians is in the pocket of jihadis, the jihadis will always ensure that Israel is the better man. And I encourage Israel to be the better man in this fight right now. Any other questions or comments, ladies and gentlemen, about the Christian movement? So the question is, she made a point. The best way